Hook. What if the person you welcomed into your home carried a secret that could shake your entire world? Story with channel promotion, 400 plus words. Welcome, friends. You are watching Your Channel Name, the home of powerful stories filled with mystery, drama, and fate. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next heart-touching chapter. The story begins under the burning sun of the Western Plains. The wealthy cattle baron, John Maverick, stood tall on the wide porch of his ranch house. His eyes carried the weight of a man who had lost too much. Since the tragic death of his wife 2 years ago, his home had fallen into silence, his heart into shadows. His only son, Daniel, was growing wild and restless without a mother's care. John knew he needed help, but not just any help. He needed someone gentle, strong, and capable of guiding his boy. So he hired a nanny. When the stagecoach arrived, a young woman stepped down, her figure graceful yet steady, her face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed bonnet. John extended his hand out of courtesy, but the moment her eyes met his, something stirred deep inside him. There was a strange familiarity, an echo of a face he once loved. "Mr. Maverick?" she asked softly, her voice carrying both strength and sorrow. "Yes, and you must be Miss Clara," he replied, studying her carefully. But what John did not know, what fate had so carefully concealed, was that this woman was no stranger at all. Clara was the younger sister of his late wife, a woman who had promised herself never to reveal the truth. She had come not only to care for the boy, but also to protect a secret that could change everything. That night, as the wind whistled across the ranch and the cattle groaned in the distance, Clara stood by the boy's bedside, whispering words of comfort. From the shadows of the hallway, John watched her, feeling a warmth he had not felt in years. Little did he realize that the woman who soothed his child was carrying a past tied to his own blood, his own pain, and his own destiny. Friends, this is only the beginning. Stay with us as this story unfolds, a tale of hidden truths, second chances, and the power of family. Welcome, friends. You are watching Your Channel Name, where stories of courage, love, and destiny come alive. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more chapters of this powerful tale. The morning sun spread golden light across the wide plains as the ranch slowly came to life. Cowboys saddled their horses, dust rising under hooves, while the ranch hands prepared for another long day of work. Inside the grand yet lonely house, Clara moved quietly through the kitchen, preparing breakfast for young Daniel. The boy's laughter rang out like music, a sound the walls had not heard in far too long. John Maverick paused at the doorway, watching the scene unfold. His son, who had once been restless and disobedient, now sat at the table with bright eyes, listening closely as Clara spoke to him. She told him little stories, gentle ones about courage, kindness, and family. John's chest tightened as he realized how quickly Clara had filled the emptiness in his son's life. Yet behind Clara's calm smile, her heart raced. Every corner of the ranch reminded her of her sister, the woman who had once stood here as John's wife, the woman whose absence still lingered like a ghost in the rooms. Clara had promised herself she would never speak the truth, but sometimes the boy's questions cut too deep. "Miss Clara," Daniel asked innocently, "did you know my mother? You tell stories that sound like her voice." Clara froze for a moment, her hands trembling. She forced a soft smile and nodded. "Yes, Daniel, I knew her very well." From the porch, John listened. Something in Clara's tone made his heart stir uneasily, as if the answer carried more weight than he could understand. He wanted to ask, but pride and the pain of his loss held him silent. The ranch seemed alive again, but hidden beneath, the laughter and warmth was a truth, waiting to rise like a storm on the horizon. Welcome, friends. You are watching Your Channel Name, the home of unforgettable stories, where secrets, family, and destiny collide. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to keep this journey alive. The evening settled in with the smell of leather, dust, and supper drifting through the house. John Maverick sat at the long wooden table, his son by his side, while Clara served the meal with quiet grace. Her movements were careful, practiced, almost as though she had walked these rooms before. John noticed every detail, the way her hand brushed, the table's edge, where his late wife once sat, the way her eyes softened at Daniel's smile, the way her voice carried a note of familiarity that stirred memories he thought were long buried. As the boy laughed and ate, John leaned back in his chair, his gaze steady on Clara. "You seem to know this house better than most who step inside," he remarked, his voice deep and thoughtful. Clara froze for just a second before answering. "It's only that I've cared for homes before. Mr. Maverick, a woman learns to notice things." John studied her carefully. He had lived years in silence, years where grief had clouded his heart. But now, here was a woman who seemed to breathe life back into his son, and even into him. Yet there was something she wasn't saying. Later that night, after Daniel had gone to bed, John stood out on the porch, staring at the horizon. The cattle groaned in the distance, and the wind whispered through the grass. Clara stepped out quietly, holding a lantern that glowed soft against the night. "Daniel asked about his mother again today," she said softly. John's jaw tightened. "He misses her every day, as do I." For a moment, silence hung heavy between them. The lantern light flickered across Clara's face, revealing sorrow, love, and a secret too deep to hide forever. John felt it, even if he couldn't name it yet. "I just hope," he said finally, his voice low, "that you're not keeping anything from me. Miss Clara, my boy has had enough lies in this world." Clara's lips parted as though she wanted to speak, but instead she lowered her eyes. "I would never hurt him, Mr. Maverick, you have my word." But inside her heart she knew, sooner or later, the truth about who she was would come crashing down, and nothing could stop it. Welcome, friends. You are watching Your Channel Name, where every story unfolds with drama, destiny, and heart. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to stay connected with us. The days at the Maverick Ranch grew warmer, but the air inside the house grew heavier. Clara did everything she could to keep the boy happy, teaching him lessons, calming his restless spirit, even singing him lullabies that only she and her late sister once knew. But John noticed. Every song, every word, every glance at the boy carried a shadow of the past. He tried to ignore it, but the truth clawed at him in silence. One afternoon, after a long day on the cattle fields, John returned to the house earlier than usual. He stopped at the doorway unnoticed and listened. Daniel was sitting at Clara's feet as she brushed his hair gently. "Aunt Clara," the boy said softly, "you remind me of the picture I keep of my mama. Are you really her sister?" Clara's hand froze. Her heart pounded, her breath caught in her throat. She wanted to deny it, but Daniel's eyes were wide with innocence, searching for truth. "Yes," she whispered finally, "I am." John's boots echoed against the wooden floor as he stepped into the room. His eyes, sharp as steel, locked onto Clara. "So it's true," he said slowly, his voice hard but laced with pain. "You are her sister." Clara's face paled. She rose quickly, but her hands shook as she held Daniel close. "I never meant to deceive you, John. I only wanted to care for him. He's all I have left of her." John's chest rose and fell, his fists clenched at his sides. For 2 years he had lived with the ghost of his wife, and now here stood her sister under his roof, raising his son, keeping her secret. His heart warred between anger and something deeper, something he was afraid to admit. Daniel looked between them, confused, frightened. "Papa, is it bad?" John closed his eyes for a moment, steadying himself. "No, son," he said at last, his voice heavy with emotion. "But secrets have a way of tearing a family apart." The truth was out now, and nothing in the Maverick household would ever be the same again. Welcome, friends. You are watching Your Channel Name, the place where unforgettable stories of love, loss, and redemption come to life. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next emotional chapter. The house was silent that night, broken only by the restless creak of the wind against the windows. Clara sat in her small room, her hands trembling as she held a worn locket, her sister's locket, that she had carried ever since the funeral. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she whispered to the memory of her late sister. I only wanted to protect him. I only wanted to keep him safe. Down the hall, John Maverick stood by the fireplace, staring into the flames. His mind was torn apart. Anger burned inside him. Anger that she had hidden her identity. Anger that she had stepped into his house with secrets. And yet, he could not deny the truth. Clara had done what no one else could. She had given his son back his laughter, his peace, his hope. When morning came, John called Clara to the porch. The air was sharp, the rising sun painting the plains in gold. Clara stood nervously before him, her eyes lowered, bracing herself for his judgment. "You should have told me from the start," John said firmly, his deep voice carrying both strength and sorrow. "I know," Clara whispered, "but I was afraid. Afraid you would turn me away before I could care for him, before I could keep the promise I made to my sister." John's eyes softened despite his anger. "A promise?" "Yes," Clara said, lifting her tear-filled eyes. "On her last night, she held my hand and made me swear I would look after Daniel if anything ever happened to her. I couldn't break that vow, not to her, not to him." For a long moment, John said nothing. The silence stretched across the porch, heavy as the weight of the past. Then finally he let out a breath. "You've given him more than I ever could on my own. For that, I can't send you away." Clara's lips parted in shock, relief flooding her eyes. "But," John added, his voice steady, "from now on, no more secrets. If we are to raise this boy together, he deserves nothing but the truth." For the first time in years, John felt a spark of hope, not just for his son, but for himself. And as Clara stood beside him, he wondered if destiny had given him a second chance, wrapped in the most unexpected way. Friends, this is only the beginning of a story of love, forgiveness, and family. Stay with us and remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to your channel name for the next powerful chapter, Soul of Kindness.